I was listening last meetings you had, last two meetings, and then I heard there was a lady voice. Who was it? Like I couldn't hear that you were addressing her. A voice that I did not recognize. Somebody was here in the light on the path.
Mhm. I have to go back and check. Yeah, I'm not
Oh,
sure.
okay, maybe it was Erika, somebody. Yeah.
All right, so to start, a couple minutes of silence. Thank you all for that. And then, as usual, just a quick recap. These rules are written for all disciples. Attend you to them. It's the first line of Light on the Path. And then there's these four unnumbered rules that kind of encapsulate the whole book. First one being this one. Before the eyes can see, they must be incapable of tears. The next one is before the ear can hear, it must have lost its sensitiveness. And then we come to the one that we're currently on, that everything else would be kind of a commentary about. Before the voice can speak in the presence of the master, it must have lost the power to wound. Then we come to this here. I can read this first one, and then if anyone else is wanting to read the next ones, please do. If the first rules are conquered, the first two that we just read earlier, the disciple finds himself standing at the threshold. Then, if his will is sufficiently resolute, his power of speech comes, a twofold power. For as he advances now, he finds himself entering into a state of blossoming, where every bud that opens throws out its several rays or petals. If he is to exercise his new gifts, he must use it in its twofold character. He finds in himself the power to speak in the presence of the masters. In other words, he has the right to demand contact with the divinest element of that state of consciousness into which he has entered. And this is from comments on Light on the Path. And we don't have to speak right away, but one question that comes to mind when I read this is, what do we think that threshold is that he or she talks about in the beginning? Standing at the threshold of what? What is it that before the eyes can see, they must be incapable of tears, and before the ear can hear, must have lost its sensitiveness? What does being able to do those two things put us on the threshold of, if anything comes to mind?
One thing is like the selfishness, like the lower mind, the threshold between the lower and the higher. Uh, um, yeah, Please, Christopher.
Okay. Sorry to cut you off. It to my mind, it refers to because there are stages in discipleship and initiation. There comes a time when in a person becomes an accepted disciple, and then there is a stage of sonship. I think this threshold is somewhere in between these two because from the description, Leadbeater says that during the stage of sonship, there's a golden thread that connects the master to the disciple. And whenever the disciple needs anything from the master, he can just call out his name and it will call the attention of the master. This is why it's important that the master chooses the disciple very well because they don't want to waste time, right? If, for example, they chose me and I have a problem and I just call out randomly to them, so they're doing so much work and we keep distracting them because we keep calling their name for whatever reason there is. If we need help for something, we need help for something, and it distracts them because of our link with them. It keeps calling their attention to us. So I think that it might be referring to this threshold that after you have developed certain characteristics, certain qualifications, the master takes you in as an accepted disciple or even as a son, and you have the power to call their attention whenever there is a genuine need to. But they have to choose carefully who they accept as their accepted disciple or their son because it will distract them from their work.
That's well said. Thank you. Yeah, combining what you just said with Mary Kay, what she said as well about the first two rules are kind of about overcoming the lower mind. Uh, that makes sense. A master would only want someone that close to him where constant contact is possible if they can overcome that personality that's always grasping and trying to get things and always being knocked off its center. Thank you. Another question I had on this was, why do you think that this power to help depends on willpower and not, say anything else it could depend on? I don't know, knowledge or opportunity. Why does she or he single out the will, do you think?
Because as I've heard, you start using your will if you start consciously like progressing or mm, this is not my willpower if I choose between vanilla or chocolate. Like both are like how can I say the willpower is if I between taking the ice cream or not taking in a benefit of something else. Like how can I say the will comes in more and more if you start overcoming the personal. And to overcome personal, you see that something is more valuable, that mm, like you feel that for example, yoga or meditation has some value for me because I can understand the peace of mind has a value or there's some finite truth. So the will start only before we really become spiritually practicing. We do not use will. This is more like uh, humoring our previous, karmic step. We are just, if we don't use our will, we will just keep doing the things that we are like suggested to do. Like, okay, I go to school, but I do those things that, I don't, uh, how can I say? Will means that you really you practice it. In the beginning, we don't have much will. We get little bit will if we start doing things that are not comfortable, but that are needed and that to do that we have to see that there is like necessity to do them. So that's why I think the real will start coming when we are able to say no to our personal likings, uh, by seeing that some other step is needed for the well-being of everyone.
That was well explained. Chris, you have your hand raised too?
Um, I think from well, two things come to my mind from your question. The first one, if I remember before with my previous experience, studying ceremonial magic, because there are four pillars, right, to Solomon's temple: to know, to will, to dare, and to keep silence. So the strength of your will can actually create changes within the outside world, and using that will you can also impose energies, your will or your desire onto non-material beings. Like you can command elementals, similar to how Blavatsky does it. But on a higher level, because in a mystical sense, there's only one will. We have different desires, but the desires are from our lower self. But the will is the Atma. So if our will, our lower will, is connected to the higher will, its energy is a bit stronger than just our random desires that are flaming out wherever direction it goes. But if the will, the Atma, is connected to the desire, then that will is actually stronger. And this strength of the will might be the reason why it's able to call upon the masters, because the will of the Atma is also the will of the masters, and they're aligned with that. So when you speak with the energy that comes from the Atma, they have to respond because they're kind of the same frequency.
That makes sense too. Yeah, kind of going straight to the source of both yourself and the masters. And what Mary Kay was saying made me think of which was kind of saying what the will is and isn't. It reminds me of like if you want coffee or tea, you can say you're using your will to decide if you want coffee or tea, but really it's cause and effect. Your body is built a certain way that it has a predisposition for this or that. And that's all just karma, cause and effect. So your choice to pick coffee or tea really doesn't have anything to do with your will. It's just how things have happened over time. Um, yeah, and I like this idea of trying to hold all that stuff aside, seeing it as just cause and effect, and then looking for what real will is instead. Um, that thing that's outside of time. And yeah, Chris, go ahead.
Your comment, it reminded me of something because when I was younger, I remember people in the TS, some of them, they're not really theosophists, more of philosophers, but they usually question if we really do have free will, because sometimes there's the philosophical concept of the illusion of free will. At that time, I wasn't able to understand what that means. I mean, of course, I have free will. I can choose to stand, I can choose to walk. Like you mentioned, I can choose to drink tea or drink coffee. But the way it was explained to me was that, let's say I want to eat, or let's say right now I want to eat. I prefer tea better than coffee because I had a health condition. But another person wants coffee better, but is it really their free will or is it their conditioning? Maybe because they have drank coffee before and it had a good effect, so they thought that they like coffee, but it's really just an automatic reaction. That that one also kind of sticks to me as well. So let's say I have a favorite dish. Is it really my favorite dish? And do I really, or let's say I like ice cream, for example. do I really like ice cream, or was I conditioned to like ice cream? And therefore, I think that I'm using my free will when I choose ice cream instead of not eating ice cream. But at the end of the day, is it really my free will, or is it just conditioning? And on top of that, is there a will beyond all of these conditionings? I hope that kind of makes sense. I've been
It
thinking
does.
about that for a long time.
It makes me think of a metaphor. It's not even a metaphor. It's a real life example that that Pablo uses a lot, where evidently people can get a worm, like a parasite, and that parasite makes them crave sweet things. And you'll think it's you that wants the sweet thing, but it's completely because there's this, this parasite that's excreting these enzymes into you, and that's what makes you want the sweet thing. And it's not your will, it's the will of a little bug. And just like that, a similar thing can apply to all these choices we think we're making.
This is so good. I remember also we were talking about, I don't remember was it a joke or not, but Pablo mentioned that there is a worm that if people get them, they're not able to eat meat. And I was thinking, well,
It's
it's
a tick. Yeah, it's a little tick
I
that
think
bites you, and it's where I live right now. My brother-in-law actually got bit by it and couldn't eat meat for a while. Um, yeah, and go ahead with your story. I'm sorry. Yeah,
oh no, this
I've
is
heard
so
this
cool
too.
because it's worth of I'm not, I don't like the idea getting people, getting influence of anything, but like it wouldn't be such a bad idea, but I don't put the ideas there. But more than that, I think this is our elementals. They say when child is born, there's elemental who is very strong, and elemental is the one who is crying and asking attention. And sometimes if child gets a lot of sugar, the elemental is running around, but child is sleeping, they say, like the inner one. But this is like, uh, how can I say, we need this, we can say it lower us, or like the favorite food. I think it's very much, or I need this one. And some children very easily start like giving tantrums. It's more like this elemental body needs to make a sound, needs to make, because the child itself is so pure that if it doesn't say when it's needs some food or needs some change or needs something, then it will just die. So it's like a mechanism to be alive in the beginning, but in turning our life, it's good to overcome it. But at the same time, uh, yeah, it's if you say a worm is like people who are living only in a physical level, it will make sense. But I think there's, kind of forms also in an emotional level, because I don't think a child has like a powerful other level. But like, yeah, um, yeah. And also, if we are nearby people who are craving a lot of sweets, and it's easier for us also feel the same way. It's affecting, but yeah.
Yeah, another subtle layer that where we live or the lines we think along, we get influenced by those people as well. And it might not even be our own thoughts that we're thinking, which is can be kind of crazy to realize in real time.
You said some of your family member got bitten by how it manifests. Sorry, it's interesting to
Uh,
hear.
he would get sick whenever he ate meat, and he loved meat, so that was pretty stressful for him. I think to fix it, he ended up going to what is it called when they stick you with needles? Acupuncture. I think he used acupuncture to fix it, and he's pretty much back to normal now. But yeah, for a while it really messed him up.
Maybe this is a normal, and maybe the acupuncture helped him back abnormal. I'm
It could
kidding.
be, yeah, probably. I believe it. Uh, so another question for this one that I had, she mentioned, or he mentions that there's a twofold power that comes kind of in the middle if he is to exercise his new gifts. he must use it in its twofold character. And then it kind of says later on that one of these is to contact the divinest element of that consciousness in which he's entered. I didn't know if anyone had thoughts about what the other half of that twofold character would be. I think the next slide, it says what it is, but it could be interesting, to see what comes up if you have any ideas. What this power to speak in the presence of masters, what are the twofolds, the twofold power that it requires or uses?
I think in that process, we are still overcoming, we're still, if we are still in a physical body, we have some cravings and some like this. The personal is still looking like I just had a 2 week intensive course in Dhammapada, and the story how Mara is trying to get when he's seeing that Buddha is really that Siddhartha is really near to gaining the Buddhahood, that he's starting all kinds of ways how to getting stop and give up. And I think this is it. Like we are not masters, I guess, are not yet. I understand Buddha is like a little bit above than the masters, but but still, I feel like there's this lower and higher. There's twofold in that sense that we are aiming to that, but we are not totally let go of the other part. As long as we are in a physical body, there's something, there still. Yeah, this is the thought that came to my mind.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, Chris?
I'm taking a wild guess on what the twofold powers might be, but on top of my mind, I was thinking of, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Franz Bardon, the magician. His third book is the key to the true Kabbalah. So he says that the Kabbalah is not a Jewish system of letters. It's actually the way you use sound to manifest desires or to manifest things. Don't get me wrong. It Bardon's system is not sorcery. It's more akin to yoga, but he relates to Kabbalah as being the divine language. So our words will be able to affect them. So, for example, a person chanting Om Mani Padme Hum induces a peaceful effect on the environment. So I'm thinking that a person who has twofold powers, when he chants the Om Mani Padme Hum, he's able to call upon Kuan Yin or the goddess of mercy or Avalokiteshvara. But at the same time, he's able to affect the environment through that mantra in a more profound way than, for example, I would be chanting Om Mani Padme Hum. I might also have an effect, but it might not be as powerful as a person who was able to achieve the two qualifications before me. That's just my guess.
I think you got it right. If we go to the next slide, I think that's pretty much what it says. Let's see. Chris, do you want to read it?
Sure. But he finds himself compelled by the nature of his position to act in two ways at the same time. He cannot send his voice up to the heights where sit the gods till he has penetrated to the deep places where their light shines not at all. He has come within the grip of an iron law. If he demands to become a neophyte, he at once becomes a servant. Yet his service is sublime, if only from the character of those who share it.
What does it mean that yet his service is sublime? What is the word of sublime?
Sublime is kind of like heavenly, beautiful, very good, that kind of idea. Yeah, and I think Chris explained this this quote pretty well before we read it. I think in so many words, that's what it's saying, that if we want to touch that deeper part of reality that's in line with the masters, we have to at the same time be willing to help, the world around us that is not quite so high. One question that came to mind is having our voice reach that high. What is it for? Like, for what aim? Because there's two different directions here. There's one, our voice reaches to the heights, these masters that are above us, and the other one is that we use that to help. But outside of using it to help, is there any other reason that it's useful for us, for our voice to reach that high, that you could think of? So what aim is it?
Wait. Mm.
Mary Kay's
I
out.
have,
She says I'm not
I
doing
have,
this.
I
No, I'm just
have
kidding.
this. I don't know if you can see it. This is
It's
the. Okay. Oh
it
yeah, you
thinks
can.
it's the background, so it's blurring it out.
It's daily meditations by Katrina Opici. She had extracts from letters of the masters of the wisdom. And today you just ask this question. And today is a new. Uh,
That book came up in the podcast that's coming out this month too.
oh, lovely.
Yeah. So I was just holding it to the
I just.
camera because I found it as
Oh
well.
yes, I have. Yeah. Today is the 1st of March, and this is what it says here. The only object to be striven for is the amelioration of the condition of man by the spread of truth suited to the various stages of his development and that of the country he inhabits and belongs to. So I understand that the only object to be driven is basically help man to spread the truth that is suited to the various stages of his development, because in humanity we have people from different stages, and that suits his development and the country he inhabits and belongs to. And that was a really deep thought for me, because different countries are also in different situation, and some are, I don't want to say closer, but they're like in different stages, and we have to give out, like it says, the only object to is worth of striving for. And you ask this question, like what we what we are going to do with this higher voice, and I understand what is the truth. Like we have this saying that the truth is higher than religion. What is the truth that is higher? Is it the truth about who we really are as a man, as a person, or that we are actually not? And to give out that in various ways, because uh, people are hearing. Some people are only able to think in a physical level. Some people are, more tuned in the possibilities of spiritual explanations. But more than that, this is all explanations and how to get others nearer to. So it was just an interesting thing to hear in the morning, because you just ask what we are going to do if we get this higher voice, like what we are going to do it. And it says the only object that is worth like driving is to understand the truth and then spread it to others.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. It's a quote from a master when we're trying to, find out what it means to have a voice that can speak in the presence of the masters. It was KH that said that quote you read.
Um, uh, my thoughts on this, when I was reading it, I was thinking of the esoteric cross. So in the teachings of DK and Alice Bailey, they mentioned that the esoteric meaning of the words of the Christ, he says that those who want to follow him must carry his cross. We must carry our own cross and follow him. The cross is symbolic, so the vertical axis is our connection with our higher self, And once we connect with our higher self, we're able to connect with the spiritual hierarchy or the masters. So I think this is what they mean when they say that we are sending our voice to the highest place that we can. And once we reach that, we are demanding to become a neophyte because we're demanding to be a chela or a student of the master. But once we do that, the master will reply, or even the soul or the higher self will respond, and it will give us a glimpse of the divine plan. And once we see that vision of the divine plan, we have an idea of what our purpose is in life. So some people are called to a religious life. Some people are called to become scientists. Some people are called to become educators, whatever the field of service is. And you have to become a servant. This service is sublime, but only from the character of those who share it. So sometimes we think that, oh, so this job isn't really grandiose. It really isn't wonderful. It isn't really something to be proud of. It won't make me a multimillionaire. But to the person and to the other people who share that same line of consciousness, they see how sublime it is. Like, for example, a nurse taking care of patients. It won't make you a millionaire. It will probably some people will probably find the work to be dirty or it's disgusting. But to the person doing it, if they have reached that level of the higher self, and to the other person who share a similar view, that work is sublime. So it kind of connects between meditation, wherein we reach our higher self, and when we reach that, we'll gain a vision of what our purpose is and what our part is in the divine plan. And then we should be able to act upon this inspiration. And those who have that same inspiration and us will be able to understand. I hope that kind of makes sense to you.
Yeah, that definitely does. Yeah, and another question on this quote that came to mind was it. So it seems that this is describing a law of nature that as we rise, as we see things from a higher perspective, get that map of what we're supposed to be doing and why, that goes beyond just the lower mind to something higher. As we get that, it seems to be a law that we also have to become servants who then take that and help the people around us. Well, and my question is, why do you think that's a law of reality? Like, why is it that if we're not willing to become servants and help the people around us, we can't even reach that knowledge? Why do they have to go hand in hand? Um, and maybe this is kind of going into how the logos works, how that, higher power than us that we probably can't really understand works, but maybe not. Maybe there is something in it that we can get. I don't know. Yeah, so the question is, what do you think drives that reality?
Can I also liked very much the same sentence. If he demands to become neophyte, he at once becomes a servant. And I wanted to address it another way. If you are very sincere servant, maybe you become a neophyte, or maybe you're offered. I don't know. But from February 28th, I would read you because I am reading now them every morning like a work, and I just Maha Chohan in 28th of February have said, not in the 20, but they have put it to think about it in 28th February, but he said it in some other time. But this is what he said: that we, the devoted followers of the Spirit incarnated of absolute self-sacrifice, of philanthropy, divine kindness, as of all the highest virtues attainable on this earth of sorrow, the man of the men, Gautama Buddha, should ever follow the TS, Theosophical Society, represents the embodiment of selfishness, the refuse of a few with no thought in them for the many, is a strange idea, my brothers. So I think for the Buddha, for the Theosophical Society, to the movement. This is the highest of the highest. Mahashohan said that this is even from him, like this is, we are the followers of that spirit. So this is the highest, and Mahashohan is like a supervisor of other masters. So this is, in that sense, they are following that, and it's like a hierarchy. And if what they are following is philanthropy and divine kindness and absolute self-sacrifice, then how neophyte who tries to become that could be anything else?
Thank you. Yeah, tying it to another quote from the master that's incredibly relevant. Chris, I see your hand raised.
Uh-huh. Regarding that question, I have three ideas, three levels of answers to that question. The first one, Leadbeater says in Masters and the Path, so the masters are withholding occult knowledge from the masses for our own safety, because if it's given freely to everyone, then everyone will become magicians, and everyone will become black magicians, and it will be Atlantis all over again. We'll be killing each other with invisible thought waves. So they're withholding that until they feel that it's safe to give the information out, because you are of a sufficiently purified character, and they can trust that you will use that knowledge for the good of humanity and not for your selfish desires. A second level is that maybe it's also the law of karma. The more good that you do out of service, you reap the leadership position that you have because of that. So you take care of people, and because of that, you reap the good karma to become a leader of men. And the third one, I think this would probably, from my readings of the Stoic material, as well as from modern leadership books, such as The Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. I'm not sure. I think it was Martin Luther King who mentions that for if you think that service is beneath you, then leadership will always be above you. So if you don't want to serve, don't expect to be placed in a leadership position ever. And Stephen Covey and the ancient Stoics would say that it's just the law of nature. It's just the law of the land. It's just that they mentioned that it's like the principle-centered life. It's just like the law of gravity. When you throw something up, it has to come down. So similarly, those who serve, it's just the natural law that people will find an affinity with them, and people will trust them. And it's the law of human nature that if you trust and care for somebody, they will follow you, and you will become a leader of men. So it's not really well, it is metaphysical, but it's not really something imposed outside. It's just the way that it is. Because, like Martin Luther King said, if you think that leadership service is beneath you, then leadership will always be above you.
That was also really well said. Yeah, the your idea with thought forms makes me think of if we were killing each other with thought forms in Atlantis, but what could we do on the other side of that? Like how powerfully could we help each other if we can do the opposite? So that's something to look forward to, I guess, as humanity gets more selfless. And then yeah, this idea of the occult hierarchy that seems to keep coming up today is I like it. A lot of people I think shy away from this idea of hierarchy of someone being above you or whatever. But I think the way you explained it, Chris, makes a lot of sense that they're above us because they're it's so much a part of who they are to help. And if we were to actually meet a master or the master's master, we probably wouldn't be able to help it. We want to do whatever they want us to do because we can tell they're the embodiments of love and selflessness. And how could you fight, something like that? You just want to go along with it. Yeah, were there any other thoughts on this before we go to the next one? All right, here's the next one. And if anyone's willing to read it, please do.
I can.
Okay, thank you.
For the masters are also the servants. They serve and claim their rewards afterwards. Part of their service is to let their knowledge touch him. His first act of service is to give some of that knowledge to those who are not yet fit to stand where he stands. This is no arbitrary decision made by any master or teacher or any such person, however defined. It is a law of that life which the disciple has to enter upon.
And again, it's interesting to me that these things are laws inherent within nature. And it makes me wonder, why is it built this way? Yeah, Chris?
I think it's also the idea of the spiritual hierarchy. So obviously, you cannot teach somebody who is greater than yourself, right? You cannot teach somebody who is wiser than yourself unless you are wiser to that person in that particular field. So in this one, they mentioned that the masters, their main service, because I remember in theosophy, the difference between an adept and a mahatma is that an adept, they serve but they don't take on chelas. But a Mahatma, their primary field of service is that they take on chelas to become their disciples. So they teach them. So a disciple is obviously less than the master of wisdom, just as an initiate is greater than a disciple. So the master, out of his love and compassion as his field of service, he teaches the chelas so that the chelas can become masters in their own right. The masters, they serve a greater teacher. So in some traditions, it's the Christ because the Christ is the avatar of love. In some traditions, it's the Buddha because the Buddha is the avatar of enlightenment. But they serve this particular teacher because this teacher is greater than the masters. And then the Christ serves somebody higher. So in some teachings, it's the Sanat Kumara. And sometimes the Sanat Kumara is somehow related to the logos of the planet. And this logos is also learning, is also teaching, is also learning from a logos of, let's say, the solar logos, who is the god or the deity of the primary of the solar system. And this solar deity is part of a larger system. And this logos is probably a disciple of a greater deity than this particular being is. So in general, I think it's a hierarchy, not in a military sense that there's a general and you have to follow this one. It's a hierarchy in terms of a teacher, like in terms of like a school. Like there are people who have graduated from, let's say, high school, and they are able to teach a certain people because they have already completed that particular course. But the people who have graduated high school should be taught by somebody who has achieved a higher form of learning. So a person who has studied a master's degree can probably teach somebody in college, but a college degree holder could not teach somebody who, or a college student cannot teach a person with a college who is already a college graduate because they have already completed that. I hope that kind of makes sense, that you complete one course, therefore you have the ability to teach that. But those who have not completed that course should not be able to teach you because you have greater mastery in that particular field. But it doesn't end. So when you end from one course, there's another higher level of learning, and then there's another higher of learning, and then there's another higher level of learning, and it goes at infinity. I hope that kind of makes sense. I
It
think I said
does.
a lot.
Thank you. Mary Kay?
Just to add to that last, this idea that we have, let's say, Einstein, and it will be a waste of his time if he goes to kindergarten and starts teaching there. He could do it perfectly. I mean, I don't know if perfectly, but like he could definitely do it. But it's much, if he's doing it like a PhD students, it will be much beneficial. So does the masters. Like we could start to, study the theosophy on try to understand our own. When we actually reach higher, we deserve to get, somebody's higher. How can I say? Um, because I was trying to put this, what you said, teachers and school analogy in a theosophical study. Like there's a person who is starting, and then there's somebody who is a little bit further, and we don't have like levels here in that sense. Some people think that they know much, but yeah, I don't go there. Anyway. What I wanted to say that if we are sincere, we notice those teachers who whose teaching, let's say in theosophy, has like more depth in it. And if we then take a choice to follow them, we might go further than if we would choose somebody who is giving more like introductory or like, yeah, yeah. We also have a choice here.
That's true. Thank you. Leonardus?
Yeah, what Chris mentioned reminded me of the part of the golden stairs, which is the willingness to give and receive instructions. In this regard, that like there is always something that we are to learn, and therefore we need to be willing to receive instructions from each other. And also there is something that we already know, and that part we give instructions to others. It's very beautiful. Thank you for the sharings.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. So one thing I wonder in regards to this quote is maybe on a more practical level, daily life, how do we choose when and where to try and help with knowledge? Um, I think inherently, it's a very subtle thing, and maybe we never actually think we're going to help with knowledge in this case or not, but maybe we do. I don't know if you had any thoughts or any tips, advice.
I actually asked Kim Dew this question before in one of the youth gatherings, and her answer was very beautiful. There is, like, actually, Chris has mentioned this also just now, and that there is always somebody that is lower than you. That's what she said. So don't wait until you know everything, because then that is going to be a very long, long time.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and that's more or less paraphrasing from what she said, and I remember. And as I tried to apply what I heard from her, then I realized that there is no clear guidance on what is should and shouldn't be shared, what or to what extent. And in other occasions, I discussed about this with another older member in our lodge, and what I learned from that is that when we are trying to help other people, it is basically three things: that we give the help in the right time, at the right place, and in the right amount. That applies for knowledge also, I guess. There's like not too little, not too much, and at the right time and in the right place. In that sense, so it's just yeah. I don't know whether that makes sense.
It does. Yeah, it's very practical. Chris, yeah.
I remember before somebody asked this in one of the Theosophical Lodge meetings. So, just to give context, so in the Philippines, there's a lot of people begging in the streets. Depending on where you are, of course. If you're in a high-end area, there won't be. But there are places where there are children begging in the streets. But in the news, it was shown that some of these beggars are actually used by syndicates. So if you give money to them, they will not use it for their own food. The syndicate will take it from them. So at the end of the day, they'll be rounded up, and whatever alms they receive, they'll be taken there. So the question is given there, should we help these beggars or not? Because we might be helping the syndicate or not. And I think it was Dr. Rosell who says that um, truth is that which compels. So if you meditate regularly, there is an inner sense that tells you whether it's the right action or not. It's very faint, but it's there. And it's also something that I think when we went to Mass, our parish priest also told people, advised people. He says that if you don't know whether you should help or not, you should go into stillness and ask the Holy Spirit if you should or you should not. If the Holy Spirit compels you, go ahead. If it doesn't, then it probably isn't. If you don't feel that compulsion to help. And sometimes it's difficult if we haven't reached that level yet of intuition. But I guess the best thing that we can do is do what the Stoics say, just focus on those things that are within your control. So if you think at this particular moment, this is the best that you can do to help based on your present judgment, this is the best thing that I can do, then do it. But if you have reason to believe that it's not, if you think that this person will use this money for wrong purposes, then probably you shouldn't. So there's no absolute right or wrong answer. We should trust our own intuition on what is right and what is wrong. And if we're not able to access our intuition, we try to use our reason and try to assess the situation and try to act as intelligently as we can given the data or the information that we have. And at the end of the day, that's all that we can do. Just do our best, and we'll leave everything else to God, to karma, to whatever forces you want to call it, to the higher power that is at work in the universe.
Yeah, that's grounded and probably a way that we help ourselves too when we try and develop intuition. We're not just helping them, we're helping ourselves, I guess. Mary Kay? Yeah.
Yeah, to add that in Estonia, I really have one or two beggars, but here in India, there are a lot of them. Like you said, especially depending where are you moving, and one of the things I had the same thought. Like I've heard about that they're giving this money away, and it's if you give them, and the other thing is. If you give money and they use it, let's say, for narcotics or something to hurt themselves, like alcohol, then you take part of that karma. If I give them money, I don't know. But I do not say that I don't give. It depends on the situation, like you said. But I try to give food because they ask money for food. So I usually try to hold in my bag something that I can give. Um, some of them are not happy, they really want money, but uh but it's like this is my compromise, that I remember when I was in Nepal. I had, before I went to a public place, I bought a lot of bananas and I just give this one, and it's biodegradable. Even if they don't have good teeth, they can have it. And yeah, I think that was my compromise, because I, as a human being, I like to give. I don't mind giving, but I have to be smart, because sometimes I can see this person who's taking away money is standing next to this person who is in a wheelchair and is begging, and like they're waiting, and so I give banana both of them. But because yeah, but I feel like I hope they will not take away the food. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. And it's kind of the same here in the US. There's not a lot of people that beg, but when they do, they normally want to use the money for bad things because there's so many ways you can get food and things if you're homeless here. So I get that. Yeah, I'm trying to be smart, not giving money for bad things. It makes sense. Was there anything else on this before we go to what I think will be our last slide for the meeting? All right, if not, we'll go to this one. And it's pretty short. I can read this one. Therefore was it written in the inner doorway of the lodges of the old Egyptian brotherhood, the laborer is worthy of his hire. And I really like this quote. To me, it's a bit inspiring and helpful to know that if we're willing to work, you know, in one way or another, we will be able to help. And that's all it takes to be willing to help. I didn't know what anyone else thought about this. Any ideas that come to mind?
Can you
Yeah, this
explain the laborer is worthy? Sorry, can you just like explain? Laborer is the one who's making work and is worthy of his hire. So he's worthy of what he gets back, or like I don't quite understand what does it mean worthy of his hire.
Yeah, you're right. It's a subtle way to write this. When I read this, to me, it's saying that the person who is willing to work, because they're willing to work, it means they're good enough to have that job. It means that just the fact of being willing to help, you're gonna have the ability to help. And that's what it takes. So to me, if someone feels like maybe they're worthless and there's nothing that they can do, that's not true, because if you're willing to help, you're going to be able to help. And I think that could help, maybe people who have low self-esteem or things like that to, trust themselves. Chris, yeah, you were saying.
Yeah, I agree with that. But I was also thinking like if you're applying for a job, so you're technically a laborer and you're after a particular field, like a particular job. Like for example, if you're applying for a trainer role, you have to be worthy of your hire. So if you want to apply to become a trainer, you have to be able to speak well. You have to be able to be knowledgeable in the field that you want to teach in. So my idea is similar to what Seth means, that you have to have that willingness to help, but you also need to prepare yourself. You need to make sure that you have the right qualifications for the particular field of service that you want to achieve. So if you feel that your particular field of service is in the field of politics, you need to make sure that you have the characteristics that would make you an upright politician. If you feel that you are called to become a teacher, you have to develop the qualities like patience, loving, kindness, and you have to develop wisdom and knowledge so that you are worthy to be within that particular position. If you want to become a leader, you should be able to take care of the people who are underneath your charge. It's not just you wanting the position, but you have to be willing and qualified for that particular field that you want to enter. So I think that's also true in terms of spirituality. If we want to become a disciple of the masters, we need to qualify, we need to develop the characteristics of a disciple, and we need to have that willingness to do the work that would entail us becoming a disciple, not just I want to be a disciple because I want to be a disciple. I want to be known as a disciple or something like that.
Thank you. That's extremely well said. Yeah, Leonardus?
and I see that this is a problem, particularly in the lower plane where there is a sequence of things. Because I feel that if it is in the higher plane, when we have the willingness, when we have the will, then the resources are like gatherable, like almost at the same time, because the consequence and what's that, the cause and the effect can happen at the same time. And if we bring it back into that, then to flip it around also is that the as long as we have the willingness, and then we want to serve, and then it will be shown to us what we are lacking. And that is not a rejection, but it is a more of a guidance that's like, these are the next sequence to do. Simply because we are bound by time, then we just need to do it in sequence, and then eventually we'll get there. That's what I thought.
Yeah, that's helpful too. If the universe or whatever higher power is able to show us where we're lacking in something so that we can then do the job, that's extremely helpful. Yeah. Were there any other thoughts on this before we go to the last 2 minutes of silence? No. All right, here we go. And with the intent of this being to, I don't know, kind of create a collective thought form that we then, send out as an act of service to the world, kind of encapsulating at least the feeling of the meeting, to help those around us. So 2 minutes starting now. I want to say thank you everybody for being here. Your your presence and your thoughts, that so makes this fun. So thank you, and hope to see you again next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.